There's no advertising or sponsorship on this show, but if you enjoy listening to it and would like to show your support by, say, buying me a coffee, please head on over to 5minutebiographies.com/coffee to see how.
Welcome to the 5-Minute Biographies podcast, where every week we tell you interesting things about interesting people in about 5 minutes. And now here is your host, Wayne Armstrong.
Hi guys, welcome to the 5-Minute Biographies podcast, Season 6, Episode 3, Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes was born on the 13th of April 1570 in Stonegate, which is in York in the north of England. His parents were a proctor called Edward Fawkes and Edith, a recusant Catholic. His great-grandfather on his father's side of the family was Lord Mayor of York in the 1530s. He also had 3 siblings, a sister called Anne, who had been born in 1568 but had died only a few weeks later, and 2 more sisters, both younger than Guy, one called Anne, born in 1572, and the other called Elizabeth, born in 1575. The date I just gave you for his birth is a bit of a guesstimate, as it's not actually known what date he was born. However, there are baptism records from the Church of St. Michael le Belfry, showing that he was baptised on the 16th of April. At the time, it was customary to wait 3 days from the birth of a child before the baptism was performed, and so it's probably a fairly accurate guesstimate. Edward, Guy's father, died when he was only 8 years old, and so several years later his mother remarried to a Catholic called Dionis Bainbridge, who came from Scotton, near Harrogate. Guy attended St. Peter's School in York, and both of these things seem to have cemented Guy's Catholic faith, which at the time was a dangerous thing due to Elizabeth I, who was Queen of England between 1533 and 1603, continuing her father King Henry VIII's legacy of turning England into a Protestant state. There were severe punishments for those who continued to practice Catholicism. After leaving school, Guy Fawkes became a servant in the household of the first Viscount Montagu, Anthony Browne. The Viscount didn't like Fawkes and eventually dismissed him, but upon the Viscount's death he was re-employed by his grandson, the 18-year-old second Viscount Montagu, Anthony Maria. Some sources claim that Guy Fawkes married around this time and had a son, but this has not been verified. Upon his father's death, Guy Fawkes had inherited an estate in Clifton, York, but in October 1591 he sold it and travelled to join the Catholic Spanish army to fight against the Dutch Republic in what became known as the 80 Years' War. He also fought in France between 1595 and 1598. By joining the Spanish, Guy was also effectively fighting against England as the two countries were still at war. The Spanish Armada was in the past, but only by a few years, and tensions were still high. Fawkes became a junior officer under Sir William Stanley, who had at one time been highly regarded by Queen Elizabeth, but who had now switched sides to fight for Catholic Spain. By 1603, the year Elizabeth died, Fawkes had been recommended for captaincy and travelled to Spain to try and gain support for a Catholic rebellion in England. At the same time, he started to use the Italian version of his name, Guido. He denounced James I, who had taken over England's throne from Elizabeth, as a heretic, and also denounced Scotland and all of the king's favourite noblemen. Philip III of Spain received Guido at court, but support for the rebellion was not forthcoming. In 1604, a group of English Catholics led by a man called Robert Catesby had planned to assassinate King James I in order to replace him with his daughter, the Princess Elizabeth. Guy Fawkes joined the group, and their first meeting took place on Sunday the 20th of May 1604 at an inn called the Duck and Drake in London. The group had already talked about the possibility of blowing up Parliament with gunpowder, and it was felt that the addition of Fawkes would be a welcome one due to his wartime experience, and also due to the fact that he had been away from England for so long, and so was not known to anyone. One of the members of the group, Thomas Percy, had managed to secure promotion from his employer, who just happened to be the keeper of the King's wardrobe, and gained access to a house in London where Guy Fawkes was made caretaker and servant to Percy, using the pseudonym John Johnson. The conspirators discovered that a local widow was clearing out an undercroft and that the space which the group arranged to purchase the lease for would be perfect for their purposes, as it was located directly beneath the House of Lords. 20 barrels of gunpowder were brought in at first, and this was followed by 16 more on the 20th of July, with the plan being to blow up Parliament on opening day. However, the plan had to be delayed as the threat of plague in the city had delayed the opening of Parliament until Tuesday the 5th of November. In August 1605, it was discovered that the gunpowder being stored in the undercroft had decayed, and so more was brought in. The group of plotters continued to meet, and it was determined that Guy Fawkes would play the crucial role in the plot of lighting the fuse, after which it was intended that he would escape across the River Thames. Things started to unravel for the plotters when some of them became worried about the fate of a few Catholics who would be attending the opening of Parliament. An anonymous letter was sent to Lord Monteagle on the 26th of October, warning him to stay away from the ceremony. The plotters heard that the letter had been considered to be a hoax, and so they decided to continue with their plans, not knowing that Lord Monteagle had taken the letter more seriously than they thought, and had shown it to the king. The king ordered a search of the cellars to be conducted by Sir Thomas Knivett, which was conducted in the early hours of the 5th of November. Guy Fawkes was discovered leaving the cellar, and was arrested. The barrels of gunpowder were found hidden behind piles of firewood, and so the plot was foiled. The following day, King James ordered that the defiant John Johnson, as Fawkes had identified himself as, was to be tortured in order to discover the identities of his co-conspirators, and so Fawkes was transferred to the Tower of London. As the torture became progressively worse, Fawkes eventually gave up his true identity on the 7th of November, and also revealed there to be 5 conspirators, the names of whom he started to reveal on the 8th of November, along with their intention to install Princess Elizabeth on the throne. By the 9th of November, the interrogators, led by Sir William Wadd, Lieutenant of the Tower, had extracted a full and signed confession from Guy Fawkes. The trial of the 8 men accused of the gunpowder plot began on Monday the 27th of January 1606 at Westminster Hall, and was watched in secret by the king and his close family. All of the defendants were found guilty by the jury of high treason. Guy Fawkes, along with all of his co-conspirators, were hanged, drawn and quartered, with various body parts being distributed to the 4 corners of the kingdom as a warning to other potential traitors. I hope you enjoyed that episode of 5 Minute Biographies. If you did, why not say thanks by buying me a coffee? Head on over to 5minutebiographies.com/coffee to see how.
Thanks for listening to the 5 Minute Biographies podcast at www.5minutebiographies.com.